anyone who still gasps at the theft and plunder of the government and the political class against Kenyans is either a pretender, a stranger, or a beneficiary of the corrupt system. So I will not bother making a comment about the corruption galore that's going on. It is nothing new. It will not be the last, and the charade that is going on in the courts will not stop it. The matter arising for me is that Kenya is officially a lootocracy, and we cannot stop plunder of public resources by a sick political class using the law. We have reached that point that we were clearly warned by Frederick Bastiat when he said, when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. For the last 55 years, plunder has become a way of life for the political class. Every day, in all sorts of ways, they are stealing from us and plundering the country. And guess what? It's all legal. Welcome. This is Matters Arising. Plunder of public coffers by the political class and their civil service counterparts will never be fought successfully through the law. It is legal. Some small fish are being paraded in courts over some small money missing here and there. This is pure theater. The big contracts, the really big contracts in government are given to companies owned by the political class who trade with government using insider information and political cronyism. This is all legal. When the DCI tried to follow the money trail of foreign companies that get billions of shillings in shitty contracts, he said that some of those foreign companies with Wazungu directors were actually owned by the high and mighty inside government. Almost all the players in the political arena today define themselves as businessmen. They own companies that trade with government for billions of shillings in overpriced deals, fake goods, white elephant projects, ghost projects, non-priority projects, designed to fail projects, duplicated projects, and this on a daily basis, and it's all legal. When we enacted a new constitution, we built in it a concept called separation of powers. Your average politician is fond of quoting that constitutional aspiration when called to account. But the political class has made sure that legally, this separation does not extend to money. All politicians in this country either control or want to control public resources in spite of a constitution that clearly seeks to separate powers. When our MPs realized that the new constitution removed their power to control money through the CDF, what did they do? They changed the law. Now, they legally control billions of shillings from the central government, totally in contravention of the principle of separation of powers and their role of representation, oversight, and legislation. They put clever language in the law to make it look like they are not in control of the fund. You and I know who you must talk to access CDF fund. And then the MCAs demanded theirs too, calling it ward fund. And surely, if the MPs can get one, why would the MCAs not? It is common knowledge that MPs and civil servants pay themselves hefty sitting allowances to do the jobs we pay them for at the end of the month. They draw hefty packs, allowances, and benefits from the public coffers for doing nothing, or at best, for doing business with government. The extent of their appetite for self-service is simply obscene and immoral, but it is all legal. Those from the legislative arm who have legalized plunder make a very warped argument that the people have come to expect a lot from them, and therefore they need to siphon more from the public coffers to meet public demands. Well, it is not the legislator's duty to meet the so-called needs of the people. It is their duty to represent the people and ensure the government meets those needs. And that is why the concept of separation of powers was built into the Constitution. I have argued before that we have been ruled by the same people for the last 6 decades. Like Frederick Bastiat warned, that has been enough time for them to change the laws and make sure that they are stealing from us legally. And they have not disappointed. This situation is actually not unique to Kenya, and that is why the architects of democracy and democratic systems envisaged a change of government every so often. Frank Herbert has warned us why it is necessary to change governments often when he says, governments, if they endure, always tend increasingly toward aristocratic forms. No government in history has been known to evade this pattern. And as the aristocracy develops, government tends more and more to act exclusively in the interests of the ruling class, whether that class be hereditary royalty, oligarchs of financial empires, or entrenched bureaucracy. After 6 decades, Kenya is held hostage by a lootocracy, what Herbert calls hereditary royalty, oligarchs of financial empires, and an entrenched bureaucracy, which has made plunder of public funds legal. Whatever efforts they put in the so-called fight against corruption is only to the extent they know that they are well covered by the law. The efforts are tokenist at best. As the old West African saying, you have to be very careful when you want to kill a fly perched on your scrotum. The only option for Kenya in relation to corruption is to change the current political class. Like they say, politicians like diapers must be changed often, and for the same reason. I have had the argument that we have always changed our politicians in every election since 1969. This may be true. Indeed, a huge majority of politicians are sent home every election. Some analysts have put it at almost 80%. This again may be true, but the tragedy is that this country is ruled by the 20% who never change. They are the greatest beneficiaries of legal corruption, and no legal maneuvers will ever catch them. They have created a legal lootocracy. Almost all Kenyan politicians and a large majority of government functionaries are beneficiaries of laws and provisions that allow them to steal from the people and plunder the country and the counties legally. Nothing crystallizes the heart of this matter than a quote from an article that appeared in Newsweek in March of 2016, penned by John Gethongo, where he described the relationship between Uhuru Kenyatta and the state like this. And I quote, "What would the president have to do to recover a modicum of credibility and avoid the taint as one of the continent's most corrupt rulers? For starters, he hails from the richest family in the country with a highly diversified portfolio of investments. As such, the government is his client in a manner so seamlessly incestuous that conflict of interest has been normalized." Well, we can confidently replicate this scenario with almost every politician and a majority of technocrats at the national and county governments. What is true for the head of state is true for all of them. Pick any big politician and the bureaucrats in government, and for each, you can confidently say the government is their client in a manner so seamlessly incestuous that conflict of interest has been normalized. The small corruption scandals in courts are just another scene in the theater of the absurd that is a Kenyan lootocracy. Don't get overexcited over the theater. The claim that the government is fighting corruption is laughable. The politicians and government steal from you every day in every kind of way, and you will never catch them. They do it legally. For Matters Arising, I'm Professor Wainaina.